Mission San Luis is a state archaeology park. Mission San Luis is a living history site that portrays the Apalachees and the Spanish from 1656 to 1704. Mission San Luis is a place where you and your family can stroll through the grounds, talk with knowledgeable interpreters about the world of Spain and its effect on the Apalachees over time, and how that engages and informs an emerging Hispanic world that we're more familiar with today. In 1528, Penthiel de Narvaez landed in the Tampa Bay area with an idea that he would explore the coastline, that he was looking to gather the riches that the natives, particularly the Spaniards, had found in what they called the New World, that they were hoping for gold, we might think, or other valuables that they could take back to Europe. It had certainly happened in Latin America, the Aztec Empire, the Incan Empire, the great silver mines of Mexico, and they thought that, well, North America surely must have some of those resources as well. And by the time he got to Tallahassee, and particularly in the area of St. Mark's, which is just to the south of here, that he thought better of the expedition. He thought that he missed his supply ship, and they decided then at that point to build some crude ships, more like rafts, and that they would try to find their way back to New Spain, which is present-day Mexico. So that was really the first Europeans that are well documented in this area. The next person to try it was Hernando De Soto. And it's really from the Soto expedition that we know more about the Apalachees. The Spaniards come in, they establish St. Augustine in 1565, and the Apalachees begin to approach the Spanish about an interest in Christianity. And they ask for some priests to be sent to them. And this is in the early part of the 17th century. And eventually priests do come to minister to the Apalachees. Now, whether this is about becoming more secure militarily to protect themselves from the surrounding other Native American culture groups or not, I'm not really sure about that, but that certainly would have been a motivator. But in any event, by 1656, there had been an agreement between the Apalachees and the Spanish friars and the Spanish militia, military and the government, to establish what becomes San Luis in the western capital of Florida. So we have the eastern capital in St. Augustine, and we have the western capital and the second largest mission established here on this hillside. Only 3 miles from the modern capital, we have the capital of West Florida. This mission was established, one, for mutual protection. It's two, there was a need in St. Augustine for food. St. Augustine was reliant on a fair amount of exported food. The soil is very poor there and sandy. The Spanish who wound up living in St. Augustine were not inclined to be farmers, and they needed a reliable source of food. There were croplands around this site as far as you could see. So this was the food base, the breadbasket of the early colonial effort. So for the Spanish, it was important from that standpoint, and also that there was a fortified outpost halfway between one end of the El Camino Royal, the Royal Road that connected Pensacola, the port, with the port of St. Augustine. And this was essentially midway. So it also provided that security link as well in the ultimately failing efforts of the Spanish to secure their borderlands. With the establishment of the mission and on this site in this village in 1656, that it continued on until it was burned down in July of 1704 in anticipation that it might be attacked by a column of Native American allies of the English and a few English militia. In order to prevent this site from falling into the hands of the English and then potentially setting up their own military presence here, that the Native Americans and the Spaniards and others burned this mission to the ground. The circular plaza here at Mission San Luis is really the center of town. And all the buildings are organized around this plaza. Now there are the three main ingredients, if you will, of the life of the village. The council house and the Native Americans and their continuing heritage and custom. Diametrically opposed across the plaza, of course, is the Catholic Church and the religious complex. The reason in many ways why this particular spot was organized. So here they are, sort of facing off each other, door to door, and at the same time, to me, their positions reflects a mutual respect, that each honored the traditions of the other. Visitors to Mission San Luis will often speak about the council house. It is so impressive. This was the center of Apalachee life. Their governance met to consider complaints from various villagers, one against another. Every village is going to have them. The Apalachee law was pretty much intact, although the Spanish law over time became the more often referred to. But the chief and the sub-chiefs would meet along with other elders of the Apalachee to hear the various issues of the day and to make decisions. It was the place of celebration. It was the community center. People would come in, and there were certain celebrations that perhaps followed a seasonal cycle, for instance, that would be celebrated here among the entire village, and particularly among the Apalachee. And it's just awe-inspiring to walk into the volume of that space and to look up at the blue sky and the occasional hawk or vulture that drifts across, and just speculate what it must have been like in the day when it was the heart of this community. The church would have pictures, religious pictures of saints and scenes and so on, because these are not literate people. They can't read the religious texts. They don't have access to printed religious books and the Bible. So that these are meant to educate them. And the priests would use them to tell the stories of the gospel and so on through the paintings that you would see on the walls. There was probably a somewhat elaborate altar, an altarpiece, a screen, but we really haven't been able to identify that well. We do know that it was somewhat sumptuous because there is a very good inventory of what the priests collected and packed back up in the ox carts and took out of here back to St. Augustine. One of the things they left, and we're still looking for, is the mission bell. We found a piece, but we know that they buried it, but we just have not been able to find it. But somewhere here, near the church, we presume, the ancient mission bell is still yet to be discovered. Mission San Luis campus is now consolidated the state of Florida archaeology collections. That they are here for visitors, if they wish, by appointment, to be able to see the archaeological representations, the tangible things that represent this colonial period of Florida and on up to modern time, actually. We have a modern archaeology lab where we have a staff of archaeologists who are now analyzing approximately a dozen years of material that has been excavated on this site so that we can make a coherent picture of the past through these tangible items recovered to learn how rich the heritage is here, how it evolved over time. You know, history is largely written by the victors, and American history is largely portrayed through English eyes. Yet, Spain and Hispanic culture are so much an integral part of what we call the borderlands, the Sunshine States, run across the United States like a belt. And yet that part of history is a great mystery to people. But our population, the pendulum is swinging back. Increasingly, there are many, many more people in our population who are of Hispanic origin, and that this is their heritage in the Western Hemisphere.